So last night, the San Francisco 49ers hosted the Los Angeles Rams. And again, I apologize to anyone watching here today. I'm a little sick, but there is a lot of big things going on in the world of sports. I feel okay playing hurt today, if you will. So if my voice sounds a little annoying, or you're a new subscriber, you're a new follower, go to one of any of my other videos. I don't usually sound this bad. But there's a lot of things, and I know my loyal subscribers want to hear my opinion of the San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams. So let's start with the losing team, because I think we learned a lot about the San Francisco 49ers last night. You know, I could continue to harp on Brock Purdy this entire 12 to 11 minutes that I'll be doing this kind of talk about the Thursday night football game last night, and I will in just a second. But I picked two teams to pull back this year. One of them being the Cincinnati Bengals, and one of them being the San Francisco 49ers. I was unequivocally right on all fronts about both those teams. Too much noise, injury history, I just didn't like it. And for the San Francisco 49ers, it was coming off a Super Bowl hangover. And I have a lot of San Francisco 49ers fans, even though living here in Arizona, I myself am a Cardinals fan. So it's kind of hard to take off the bias, but I'm pretty good at that. So I'm going to continue to give you my analysis on this San Francisco 49ers team. And just to be completely honest with you guys, this doesn't surprise me at all. And one of my San Francisco 49ers friends was like, you know, how did you know this team was going to pull back this year? And you can't say injuries because you can't predict injuries. And of course I said, well, that's ridiculous. You, of course, can predict injuries. You're not hoping for injuries, but it's a difference between predicting injuries. Injuries will happen for an injury-prone player, such as an Alex Smith or a Robert Griffin III or whoever it is, right? One of those players that's injured a lot, Jimmy Garoppolo. But it's one thing to say the San Francisco 49ers players are increasingly brittle, older, and declining. It wouldn't shock me if they missed a lot of games. Christian McCaffrey has an injury history. Brandon Ayuk, not so much, but now a torn ACL. Deebo Samuel, injury history. George Kittle, injury history. Brock Purdy's elbow exploded, and now he's had shoulder issues as well. Trent Williams is nearly 40 at this point. So, of course, you can predict that older, declining players are not exactly going to be as, firm as they used to be. It's the difference between saying Tom Brady is going to miss a full season. Like, that would be insane. He was never injured. Or Eli Manning. But if you say a Niners team that has older players who are increasingly brittle and declining, I don't think you're crazy. I just don't. And so that was part of the analysis for me at the beginning of the season, which was this team's older, it's declining, a lot of contract issues, very noisy locker room. This team is not going to be as good as they were last year. They're going to pull back. And I was ultimately right on that. So I'm not surprised that this is ultimately what's happened with the San Francisco 49ers. And then last night, you also have the Devondre Campbell situation. And I've done this a few times before, which is why I think it's very easy for me to take off the bias for me for a team that plays against the Arizona Cardinals 2 times a year. Because I've defended this guy, and I'm going to do it again, just briefly, because you know most of my opinions on one Kyle Shanahan. But last night, Devondre Campbell basically quit on the team. Wasn't happy that he was playing fairly well, or I'm assuming so. I'm not going to act like I know exactly the linebacker position for now the second string guy on the San Francisco 49ers defense. I'm not going to act like I'm that involved or that, within arm's distance of the Niners. But he quit on the team last night. And I'm assuming from what I've seen is he didn't like that Dre Greenlaw was coming back, taking his job right away because maybe Campbell felt like he was playing better than maybe he was. I don't know. But I've seen a couple of people on social media blame Kyle Shanahan. Oh, you're losing the locker room. Well, no, that's not the case. Because George Kittle came out last night. Charvarius Ward came out last night. Multiple players came out last night and said, yeah, get that guy off our team. Now, if they would have came out and said, I don't know, it's been a tough season, I get it. then yeah, you can make the case that Kyle Shanahan's losing the locker room. But everyone in unison last night was, yeah, get that guy out of here. You don't want to be here, you don't want to be here. Traverius Ward said probably going to get cut soon. This is not a Kyle Shanahan issue. This is a team that missed their opportunity to win a Super Bowl. They went to 2 of them, lost both of them. No shame in it. You lost to Patrick Mahomes. Everyone does. But you missed your opportunity. And this team needs a full reboot. And then finally, my last take on the San Francisco 49ers, and then I'll get to a little bit of the Los Angeles Rams. If last night didn't tell you everything you needed to know about Brock Purdy, once again, then I don't know what to tell you. If you're still arguing Brock Purdy is in the top tier 1 echelon of quarterbacks, I just can't reason with you. You are dying on a hill that is just continuously proven wrong. Brock Purdy is not with the Lamar Jacksons. He's not with the Joe Burrows. He's not with the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomeses. He's not in that echelon of quarterbacks. Honestly, I'm not so sure he's in the top 10 of quarterbacks. I think largely the argument was from people like me last year was, listen, he's got 5 All-Pros on his offense. He's got an offensive guru in Kyle Shanahan that makes every quarterback look better than they really are. And that's what's mostly elevating him into statistics of what a tier 1 quarterback would have. Now, is Brock Purdy still a viable quarterback? Of course. But paying him $55 million a year is just crazy. There's no other way to put it than it is just crazy. And if you're still dying on the hill that the Niners have to do everything in their power to keep Brock Purdy, ask yourself this. If Brock Purdy was on the open market, how many teams are offering him a Dak Prescott Tua Tagovailoa level contract? $55 million a year to $60 million a year. Because right now, I think everyone can point to the Tua contract and say, listen, viable, good starting quarterback, but the guy can't win a Super Bowl. And Brock Purdy is starting to level into that Tua situation of quarterbacks. Not very good in any weather that isn't 75 and sunny. If he doesn't have enough playmakers around him, he kind of shrinks in big situations, and he can't carry you. There's only a few quarterbacks in the NFL that can do that. But if you're still arguing as a Niners fan, or as a Brock Purdy stan, or a supporter, or a backer, that this guy is in the top echelon of quarterbacks, I don't know what you're watching. I don't know what you're watching. Because myself and a decent amount of people for about 2 years now have said he's largely propped up by the 5 All-Pros on his offense and Kyle Shanahan. And when you take away one of those guys, when you take away 2 of those guys, and he's just left with Jawan Jennings and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, but he doesn't have Trent Williams or Christian McCaffrey, he shrinks. And if you asked me, I think Brock Purdy is closer to Jimmy Garoppolo than he is Patrick Mahomes. And you would never pay Jimmy Garoppolo $55, $60 million a year. Now, if you get Brock Purdy to a Kyler Murray level contract, $45 million, and the cap continues to increase, makes sense. You got a guy that is viable offensively, keeps you relevant, and if you put some players around him with that extra money you can have a consistent playoff team. With Kyle Shanahan, who knows? You can make another Super Bowl. But this idea that you're still trying to push Brock Purdy as an elite level talent, I think last night told you all you needed to know. He's closer to Jimmy Garoppolo than he is Patrick Mahomes. And that's why you saw Jimmy Garoppolo have some success in this offense. That's just what Brock Purdy is now. And I think if you're still arguing anything different, I think you're just not willing to admit you were wrong, which is okay. Fans are allowed to have opinions. Lastly, Matthew Stafford was horrendous for the first half of this game, but in that second half of this game, he started to make the throws he needed to make. And this is why earlier in the season, I think it was that's actually not even true. In the preseason, and I was making my predictions, and I said this Rams team is going to win the NFC West. And I got largely laughed at. I know, contrarian, doesn't know what he's talking about, doesn't watch football. Okay, that's fine. Let people think what they want to think. That stuff doesn't bother me. Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay. Plus, with the kind of mess of an NFC West, the Niners coming down, the Cardinals coming down, the Seahawks having a little bit of a renaissance, but we'll see how that looks when they go up against Matthew Stafford again in a few weeks here. I stand on it. I stand on this Rams team still being able to get it done and to win this NFC West. Absolutely getting hot at the right time. 8-6 at this point. I think they've won 6 of the last 7 games. This is a team that started off the season, I think, 1-3. But when Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford got their weapons back, Kyron, Blake Corum's a good number 2. Tyler Higbee will be back soon. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. This team is exactly what a playoff contender looks like. Jared Verse coming to his own. Still probably need another draft or 2 for this defense. But this Rams team, I mean, if they made it to the Super Bowl, I would be a little surprised. But if they make the conference championship game, and it's them against the Packers or against the Lions, got a lot of talent with an elite level quarterback that's still slinging that thing. With Sean McVay, who's won a Super Bowl before. Not a team to be taken lightly. And so at this point, you just got to hand it to the Rams. Consistently finding ways to win, and that's what really good teams do. Even coming off of massive performances. And now they're beating up on the Niners for the second straight game. They're beating up on the Bills. And then you look at their schedule. They got the Cardinals coming up. Should be able to beat them. Other teams coming up that aren't exactly the Seahawks again coming up. Matthew Stafford's obviously going to be the better quarterback in that situation. Got to be fair. This Rams team is starting to look mightily dangerous.